Welcome to Your Business, Your Life with Matt DiFrancesco, your personal financial quarterback. Whether you've had years of success in your business or are just starting out, DiFrancesco Virtual Family Office can help you create a vision for your business, life, and family and guide you toward the fulfillment of that goal. As they say, you can't choose your family, but you can choose your virtual family office. Now, on to the show.
Welcome to Your Business, Your Life with your host, Matt DiFrancesco. So, of course, I'm Matt DiFrancesco, opening up today. And as always, I've got my co-host, Eric Johnson, on the other end. So, Eric, how are you doing today?
Doing fantastic, Matt. What is going on?
We've got plenty going on. We've just started the new year. Things are rocking and rolling. And, we're now going to be heading into what I call my spring review schedule. So that's really what my topic's going to be today. Is basically about the three review process that I do and what is involved in the spring review session.
Okay, so you got a 3-part review process and you've got a spring review session. What are the other two?
Well, there's the summer session and the fall session.
Yeah.
I'll give you a little bit of background how this started and I noticed not only just in my practice, but with a lot of advisors were doing reviews, and whether they're doing one annual review, even a lot of advisors do like quarterly reviews, but most of the time they're only talking about account performance, market performance, those type of things. And they do it a lot of times to justify their fees. Well, in my practice, because I'm getting so in depth with the client, we're not just looking at their investment accounts, but we're looking at their retirement planning, we're looking at their tax planning, we're looking at their estate planning, we're looking at risk management. So there's a lot of different areas. And what I found was in trying to do a 1 or 2 review process, things were getting lost in the shuffle. It was just you come into a meeting and what should be maybe an hour and a half meeting would stretch out into 2 hours. And even then, sometimes we wouldn't get to a lot of the stuff that needed to be covered. So what I started was this whole idea of the 3 review process. So now in March, we're coming into the spring review season. And spring review is basically, there's basically 3 areas that I look to cover. Mm-hmm. The first one is what I call the financial roadmap. The second is discussion of their 2021 goals and action plans. And then the third one are any additional 2020 tax strategies that we may want to look at. Mm-hmm. So what I really want to do, Eric, is just kind of break this down for the listeners so they get kind of an understanding on how this whole review process works.
All right. Makes sense. Sounds good. So
okay.
Are we starting with the review of the financial roadmap then?
Yes, that's exactly where we're starting. So,
all right.
Because that's really the foundation of everything that we do. So you'll remember from previous podcasts, I talk about really the initial step when a new client comes on board is we help them and their family create a vision for their business and for the family and how each family member kind of fits into this vision that they've mm-hmm. created. Mm-hmm. So from there, then we start to build a roadmap. So we kind of first assess where they are now and then say, okay, here's what we need to do to accomplish this vision. And so we create what I call the roadmap. Now, there's a specific reason why I call it a roadmap. And when I'm explaining this to clients, a lot of times, especially if they're my age or older, they would remember what the AAA trip ticket was. Do you remember that, Eric?
I don't know what that is.
Oh,
I think I'm older than you, but I think I'm older than you, but what is a AAA trip ticket?
Yeah, the AAA trip ticket was, so what you would do is if you were going on a trip, I remember when I was a kid, every year, our one vacation a year was 2 weeks down in Avalon, New Jersey. So my dad would go to AAA, and AAA would have these maps, and they would outline the trip.
Oh, okay.
Now,
all right.
What was interesting on these was, too, if they knew like there was construction somewhere, they would stamp construction there. Or if they knew that there were some detours, they could put the detour in there. So what happened is now you had a map that you were following and you were kind of flipping the pages as you were going along. But, again, this is before the days of GPS and mm-hmm. Where we could see a lot of as we call curveballs that kind of come up on a trip. So if you ran into something where all of a sudden there was construction or there was a detour or there was an accident and traffic was going to be backed up for an hour, you could look at the map and say, well, here's where we can detour to get around this to get back to our plan. Because the goal is to get to point B. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's how the triptych worked. Well, that's how the financial roadmap works. Is it's a roadmap that we're kind of monitoring. We know where we're beginning, we know where we're at, where we want to end, but as we move forward, as we all know, life throws us curveballs. So as we move forward, we can always adjust the roadmap to be able to create these detours when circumstances arise in our lives.
Yeah, and they do, right? I mean, that's just how life works. Something comes up, whether good or bad, you've got to be able to detour or just change something.
Exactly. Part of my my statement of preeminence is about that because I've been through a lot of the situations that my clients have been through. I know how to navigate this and help you to achieve the things that you want to achieve, but also help you to avoid the things you pray never happen. Mm-hmm. So we're always trying to work to make sure that we're not only just like following these steps, but that we're also adjusting when something happens in life. And we talked about this in the last podcast, there's deaths, there's divorces, there's drug addictions, there's all kinds of problems that arise within families and within businesses. So we have to always be able to adjust and kind of work on the fly with those.
Yeah, but there's also positive things that happen, right? Like weddings and babies, grandkids.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
So, those are money pits.
Well, isn't that the truth? No, you're exactly right.
As
you're
a grandparent,
exactly right.
I can say that. I love my grandkids, but good Lord, my wife spends a lot of money on those grandbabies.
Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
And you know what? There's always a change of plans. But there's a commercial that's out there where the couple's like keeps walking into their advisor and like change of plans, change of plans, change of plans. While with the roadmap, it makes it very easy because we know kind of where we want to go, and then all of a sudden when we get hit with that change of plans, we can easily make an adjustment to it. But I think the key thing is that we're in regular communication, and so the 3 review process allows us to do that.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yep. So then the next thing that kind of comes up is discussion of what they want to achieve here in 2021 and then what action plans they need to take. Mm-hmm. So I asked some questions like, are there any new goals or challenges that we need to address on the roadmap? Any circumstances that may have arisen, that we need to make adjustments to? Like I said, is somebody getting married?
Mm-hmm.
Is a child pregnant? Now we have to make these type of adjustments, and a lot of times that can even affect the business too, because maybe at one point, let's say the couple said in their business, our retirement plan is to die at our desks.
Yeah.
Well, or die underneath the car, fixing the car.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden there's grandkids that are involved, and maybe they start thinking, maybe we want to be able to transition the business, take on a different role, maybe not as an active as a role, so that we have time with the grandkids now. Well, again, these are all adjustments that we need to make. And so then from there, we can start to create action plans out of this. Now, the one thing, a lot of times you hear about financial plans. To me, a lot of times, and early on, it was difficult for me to try to get clients to start putting together what I was calling a financial plan at that time. Because what happened was many times they had done this in the past, and maybe they had a previous advisor, and they're like, yeah, we've got that financial plan. It's been sitting collecting dust on our bookshelf for 10 years. And that's what happens. It just becomes like this beautiful, 70-page report with charts and graphs and everything in a beautiful leather binder, and then it sits there. Mm-hmm. I never give the actual plan to the clients. What I give them is a summary and then the action steps that they need to take, because it's really one page.
Yeah, man. I mean, I would say that's beautiful, because I know through our conversations previously that the plans that you do with your clients are really robust. And I think people would get lost in the minutia or lost in all the details when that one-page summary sounds really good, because it gives them a very clear track to run on.
That's exactly right. And what's nice is part of the process, again, is these monthly touch base calls, emails, bombs, which are video emails. Mm-hmm. So once a month, I'm always staying in touch. Now, it might not be an actual conversation, but I'm keeping, this action plan kind of to the forefront, so they know the little steps. And it comes down to the old saying about how to eat an elephant one bite at a time, right?
That's right.
And if you can break it down into those little bite-sized chunks, clients are amazed all of a sudden. I have clients I've been working with for 15 years, and they're just like, they're like, hey, thank you so much. And I'm like, I really didn't do anything. I basically guided you. You did the work, but they didn't even realize they did the work because we had just broken it down into those bite-sized pieces.
Yeah, yeah. All of a sudden they see this progress and they're like, wow, where did this come from? Well, it's from your hard work. Yeah.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Fantastic.
So then the final thing that we'll look at is maybe some additional tax strategies. What are some things that maybe we can look to do to mitigate tax liability for the previous year? And again, this is kind of more focused on the business owners, especially the automotive repair people. What we're going to do is we'll look at their financials. We want to see if there's other ways that we can minimize taxes and fund what I call their other self-buyout vehicles. So the self-buyout plan is basically you create these funding vehicles that in the event that they do want to transition out of the business, they're not at the mercy of either trying to sell it for a multiple that they're not going to get, or that they're passing it off to the kids and the kids end up running it into the ground and then they have nothing. So it's basically a way to hedge. It's like their insurance policy. So some of these vehicles might be profit sharing plans. They could be cash balance plans if they've got really good cash flow. We'll also look at different types of non-qualified deferred comp. I don't know, you remember in a previous episode, I had my partner, Kate Seastone, who does the restricted property trust. That's one of the vehicles that we'll use. And then the other one, and this was a huge one during COVID, was emergency funding. I always want to make sure my clients have, emergency funds, which actually, COVID kind of played into our hands because my clients didn't really skip a beat because we had planned for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So those are the areas that we want to look at again. And the nice thing about those parts of especially the ERISA plans and your cash balance, your defined benefit plans, is they can be funded at any time for the previous year. So your profit sharing, that money does not have to be deposited until your tax filing time. So we can go and say, hey, wow, we had a great year. Not 2020 is going to be an anomaly out there. But, in some cases, if a client had a really good year in 2020, especially in the automotive industry, because that was considered a essential business, some of them had very good years.
Yeah.
Even though a lot of other businesses didn't. So we might want to look at funneling money into these, into the profit sharing plan or cash balance plan to help mitigate some tax liability that they may have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that business owners and non-business owners alike were very much in the same situation in 2020 with helping family, right? I mean, that's one thing that I saw. I was lucky or blessed enough that my son's actually a mechanic. So, I mean, that he was an essential worker. He did stay busy during this time. My daughter is she works at a bank, and they did not shut down, obviously. So she was also essential. She continued to work. But I know a lot of families out there had to pivot and make decisions based on maybe their children losing their jobs for a while, maybe moving in for a while. And that for a business owner and non-business owner alike, that can be difficult. And to have those strategies, looking at your, discussing what your 2021 goals are. I know that continuing to help their family, get them back on their feet, back out into their own place or whatever is part of it. And business owners have to consider that same thing. Maybe they're going to bring them into the business for a little while to help them out, to get them back on their feet. Have you had these discussions with your clients?
Oh, very much so. I think, as the title of the podcast suggests, your business is your life is your business.
Exactly.
And so these situations, especially in the family business, they affect the owners. I mean, when they know that their kids are, in financial distress, they want to help. And it's kind of an interesting dilemma that these business owners have, because a lot of them, because they're self-made, they don't necessarily want to give them a hand out, but they want to give them a hand up.
Absolutely.
And that's, I think, really one of the key things is that, they want to let them have some skin in the game, which is a philosophy I've always believed in. What's the old saying? You give a man a fish, he eats for a day. You teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime.
Yep. Agreed.
And so a lot of my clients feel the same way. So they want to help, but they also think I need to teach them how to overcome these things, because most of them have had to overcome things throughout their whole building of their business. And again, the majority of the ones that I work with are first generation. So, they've got that kind of that mindset of pulling yourself by your own bootstraps. But they also understand that in a lot of ways along the path, they received help. And so they want to do the same, not only for their children, but sometimes for even key employees, within the business.
Yeah, I think it'll be fascinating to see how many children of entrepreneurs decide maybe corporate life isn't what I want because they lost their job, or the security of owning your own business, making your own mark, plowing your own row, however you want to call it. Although the work is tough, and these business owners have done tremendously laborious work in the past to create what they have, there's some more security in that, I think, at a lot of times. And I'm curious to see how many children that didn't fall in the family business and went out into the corporate world are now rethinking, what, maybe having a business is the way to go.
I think you're going to see more and more of that. And I already see a lot of that now. I think the most successful businesses have been the ones where the kids do leave. And maybe they're gone for a while, but then all of a sudden, it's like the story of the prodigal son. Hey, my dad's servants are eating a lot better than I am. Maybe I'll crawl back to them. And it's not so much that they're crawling back, but they do come back. And you know what the great thing about this is, Eric, is that all of a sudden now they bring some fresh thoughts, some new ideas, things that they've seen in the outside world to the business. And my job a lot of times because then there could be some contention because dad's used to doing it the way he always did it, or mom's used to doing the way he always did it. And to get them to open their minds and say, look, you know what, there's human capital here. That's the most valuable thing that a family business has, is the human capital. It's, what the family members bring together, not the financial end. And that's I think the most fulfilling thing for me, is to see that come together, because the financial part's like putting a puzzle together. It's really, you take this and we fund this, and okay, let's do this, and we can do this to mitigate tax liability. But when you see the family start to come together and start working together, and then all of a sudden starting to get input. I was one of the clients. We just started doing some family meetings for him, and it was amazing. The wife said to me, as kind of on a sidebar, she goes, I'm so happy that we're doing this, because I know my husband's father and his uncles never let him in on the inside. Like, you're basically forcing Jeff to do this now. And, I think that was a really fulfilling thing for me to hear. And that was empowering the son. It was also empowering the dad, because now he was like, wow, I never had this opportunity to see the inside. And now I'm giving it to my son.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's so powerful for any family. That's fantastic.
Oh yeah, it's great. That's the most fulfilling thing of what I do. In all honesty, it's just seeing the families come together.
Yeah, I bet. All right, so what are our final thoughts for today's podcast?
Well, first off, if you're a client listening to this and you have not either gotten on my schedule or received a call from Sierra, you need to get on the spring schedule. What you can do is actually go onto the website, DiFrancescoVFO.com, and up at the top, you'll see client scheduling, and you can actually find a time that's convenient for you on my calendar that way. So if you're not a client and you want to learn more about this 3-step process and how we put together this roadmap, go to the website. Again, it's DiFrancescoVFO.com, and you'll see a tab that says schedule an exploratory call. I give everybody a half hour of my time, and the one promise I make is, because the one thing I evaluate is there going to be a fit that's there? And if there's not a fit, or I just can't help you, the one thing I always promise is I will get you pointed in the right direction. But just go to the website, DiFrancescoVFO.com, and schedule an exploratory call, and you can find a time that's right on my calendar that's convenient for you.
All right, Matt, this is fantastic. Again, I love the work that you're doing with these families, these clients, these businesses. And I know that this is what drives you, right? This is what gets you up every morning. The coffee sustains you, I'm sure, but
right, exactly.
This gets you up in the morning. So again, thank you so much for your time today. This was a great podcast.
Well, thanks. It was a pleasure. It's always a pleasure, Eric.
Absolutely. And the last thank you goes to you, the listening audience. Thank you for tuning in and listening to Your Business, Your Life with Matt DiFrancesco. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Matt comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. And again, I'm going to say this one more time. This is a great one to share because you have this process that Matt takes his clients through, and and he'll have a conversation with anybody. But if you know somebody who's just kind of struggling in this, a business owner that needs to know, hey, there's somebody out there that can really help you with this process and kind of clear your thoughts, just share this podcast with them, see what they think. They can make their own decision from there. Again, thanks so much for listening today. For everyone at DiFrancesco Virtual Family Office, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Your Business, Your Life podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of DiFrancesco Virtual Family Office. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investment, legal, or tax advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or another qualified professional with any questions you may have regarding your business or personal planning. DiFrancesco Financial Concierge, LLC, doing business as DiFrancesco Virtual Family Office, is a registered investment advisor. Registration with the United States Securities and Exchange Commission or any state securities authority does not imply a certain level of skill or training.